Hi, this is Lisa Rangel, Chameleon Resumes, a premier executive resume writing company, and thank you so much for joining me today. So, today we are going to talk about 4 bad assumptions recruiters make when helping job seekers. Now, I want to start off by saying this is by no means a trashing recruiters video. It's absolutely not. They are some of my favorite people, and I was an executive search and recruiter for 13 years. So this is not, I repeat, not a trashing recruiters video. However, I do see some wrong assumptions that recruiters make when they are helping job seekers, and frankly, career coaches do the same thing. So I could probably redo this video for next week about career coaches, because Lord knows career coaches, resume writers, job search coaches, Lord knows this element exists in every compartment of our industry. So, but I'm going to talk about what I see that can be improved upon, which is done by recruiters. So, first, bad assumption that recruiter makes when they're helping a job seeker is that the recruiter assumes that their way of getting hires done within their company or within their search firm is the only way to succeed. And that is not true. There is hundreds and hundreds of ways of recruiting candidates. There are, a myriad of ways people can get hired. Sometimes it's through a formal, structured process. Some companies are more formally structured in getting their hires done. Other companies are not so formally structured. And even within an organization, one type of role might be formally hired with a specific structure and process. And then other hires in other departments are a little more willy-nilly and not so much according to plan, and definitely going outside the expected structure, to recruiters' dismay, right? Because recruiters want to follow the process. They want everybody to go through the hiring funnel, the hiring pipeline, whatever verbiage they use. But, hiring managers are not going to follow the plan sometimes. And that rogue behavior is more prevalent in some companies than it is in others. So I think to assume your world as a recruiter, the world of recruiting that you do and embark upon in your day-to-day life, is the only way for people to get hired, I think is a common mistake, and it's an assumption that is not accurate. The second bad assumption is that I see happen is that you assume all recruiters recruit like you do. Now, there's a nuance to this second item compared to the first item, which I basically said that your process is the same as everybody's. You assume that everybody's process is the same as your process. But this second assumption, the second bad assumption, has a bit of a nuance to it. You assume that everybody recruits like you do. And by that, I mean your own personal habits that you engage in every day when you're recruiting. Look, some people read every resume. Some people don't. Some people read cover letters. Some people don't. Some people ask for cover letters and never read them. Some people ask for cover letters and read them, right? I mean, everybody does it differently. Some people go out and, try to meet people at events. Some people only go to virtual events. Some people go to networking activities to recruit candidates and, get leads. Others don't, and they do it simply all from their chair in front of their computer. And no way is wrong, no way is right, no way is better, no way is worse, right? It's what works for the individual recruiter. And, when I see recruiters kind of go out on a little bit of a pontification, perch where they're like, I read every resume, and of course I do. Well, I'm going to tell you that, and God bless, right? God bless that you do. But not every recruiter is reading every resume, and the recruiter who does not read every resume is not going out on that same pontification perch, because once they do, there will be a backlash of people saying, you should be reading everybody's resume because they're taking the time to apply, which again, those people saying that are not wrong, but nobody's going to open themselves up to that sort of backlash by admitting outright they don't read every resume. I will tell you that I was somebody who did not read every resume. And it was a refreshing post I saw, and I wish I remembered it. I totally wish I remembered it. But about a few weeks ago, I saw someone post saying like, look, I don't read every resume. I post an ad, or, our website has an ad posted, and, we get about anywhere from 100 to 200 applicants. I go through the first 50. If I don't find what I need in that first 50, I keep reading. If I find what I need in that first 50, I stop. I recruited like that, and there's people who still recruit that way today. And people can debate whether they are right or wrong, efficient, not efficient, but the point is that not everybody does it like you do. And I think assuming that everyone does it like you do is not realistic, and it's closed-minded in my opinion. And, everybody, based on their industry, their discipline, their geography, whatever challenges they have on what they're recruiting for, have their own way of doing it, combined with their own personal habits of what work for them, the way they process information, and what doesn't work for them. So again, it's a bad assumption when you say, I do X, therefore you're assuming every recruiter should do that and does do that. I think you're putting job seekers at a disservice when you do that, because you're not educating job seekers that there are simply just more than one way to do things. And again, some of those habits are good, some of those habits are not so good. This isn't a commentary necessarily on what's right and wrong, but it is different. And to let job seekers think there should only be one way of doing things is not accurate, right? I mean, it's not an accurate portrayal to put out into the marketplace. So that to me is bad assumption number 2. Bad assumption number 3 is that, you assume other people who do it differently than you are bad providers, right? So if you run across a career coach who says they do something, they advocate on finding a job a certain way, and you don't necessarily see how that way works, before you lambast that career coach, or before you lambast that recruiter, or that resume writer, or that job search coach, or that interview coach, look at their success stories, look at their LinkedIn recommendations. Do they have actual clients who have succeeded in making that job change in the way that that provider is marketing? Well, maybe then they just do it a different way than you do. Now, believe me, there's some charlatans out there that need the public protected. They don't engage the charlatans and the scammers. I absolutely know that. But don't let the few bad apples put you on this mode of being a police, type of entity where you think you got to police everybody, and your litmus test of whether they're a good provider or a bad provider is if they're doing it in a way you understand, or doing it in a way that's the same as you. Because that is a very small way of going about how to do a job change, right? Here's an example. I personally will not write a functional resume for somebody, right? I even have an article. If you Google functional resumes suck, you'll come up with an article I wrote about, I don't know, maybe 9 years ago. And I still think it stands today. I do not like, nor do I write, nor do I see these resumes work in many ways. And I outline 3 reasons why I think functional resumes suck in that article, if you feel like Googling it. But I'm going to tell you, I know people who land jobs with functional resumes. I'm just saying I won't write them. And here's 3 reasons in that article that I put out, a number of years ago, why I see them don't work, as somebody who had recruited and saw these resumes come in, and why I saw that they didn't serve the candidate who was using that format. But I can tell you, I know people who have landed roles with functional resumes. That doesn't mean they're going to hire me to write it. That means they're going to hire somebody else who writes it. And they're going to get a good product, and they're going to get some success probably. But if they need a functional resume, I'm not their girl. But I don't think that person who writes a functional resume is a scam artist or misleading job seekers, right? Nor, because I won't write them, does that mean I'm some shyster either. So you need to make sure that you are not vilifying somebody simply because they do it differently than you. That's the difference. And I see a lot of that in this marketplace amongst people in the career space, regardless of what angle they're coming from, although this video is mostly focusing on the recruiter angle of it. I see it all around. You cannot vilify somebody because they do it differently than you, if especially they have the success record that shows that their way is working for the clients that hired them. That don't assume all providers are bad. That's the key there. And then The last piece of advice, or the last bad assumption that I see people make, is they assume, as the recruiter giving the advice, they assume that their advice is going to work for everybody. And I'm here to tell you that it's not going to work for everybody. And you have to qualify it as such. So as you're about to give advice, especially if it's somebody you haven't met, whose story you really don't know, and you're doing this all via LinkedIn messaging or email or some sort of chat function, you need to, in my opinion, say, generally speaking, this is what I see in the marketplace. I don't know your particular story, but from what you've shared with me, this could resonate with you, or this could apply to you. And you let that person evaluate it and make a decision accordingly. But when you come across so emphatically that this is what you must do, or this is what I see people do, people will take your influence. And you have to use that influence very, very cautiously, because you may not have the whole story and your advice may not help. But if you think everything that comes out of your mouth is going to help everybody you speak to, that's a bad assumption. And I do see a lot of that too. So you need to be careful. You need to be careful because you do wield power coming from someone who knows how recruiting works. People will look to you, and you have to take that responsibility seriously. So these are 4 assumptions that I make. Although, again, I chose recruiters today. You want to make sure that I want to make sure that everyone who's in the career space is heeding this advice, because we will do a greater service to recruiters if we can, to job seekers if we can do that. And, I wrote an article for SourceCon about empathy between recruiters and job seekers, that I'm going to put the link in the description, so this way you can read it. There's some assumptions there that you can also avoid, and some good assumptions to make as well. So this way you can make sure you're preserving your mental headspace and making sure that you are just not wasting energy on negative assumptions that probably aren't the case. And I think that's the key. So again, just everybody take it, with a grain of salt, not take ourselves so seriously, and realize that other people are also trying to do some good as well. They just may be doing it differently than we are. And I think then we'll do a greater service for job seekers. So if you like this video, I'm going to ask you to like it. If you think of somebody who might benefit from this video, I'm going to ask you to share it. And if you have a comment or a question, feel free to post below or DM me, or you can email me at lr@chameleonresumes.com. And I know I'm forgetting some other thing, but you know the routine. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. That's it. If you don't want to miss next week's video, make sure you subscribe. So thank you so much for watching. I know this was a little longer than the norm, but I hope you think it was worthwhile, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take good care.